All yours. I'll listen to your introductions.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Ilona Selke, for agreeing to be a part of the endeavor, intellectual endeavor or practical endeavor that we all thought of taking forward, and a journey into philosophical practice. And you are in the you already traveled a lot in the philosophical practice journey of philosophical practice. So it would be a wonderful experience for us to listen to you and try to comprehend the way you moved ahead in your philosophical journey. With that intention, we thought of listening to you. We request Charu, when she informed me about that, I thought, yeah, that's going to be very interesting and exciting listening to you. And you kindly agreed to be a part of this. Thank you so much for that. And we are basically a group of very enthusiastic people from India, with the pan-Indian perspective. Like, we have people from India is a huge country, from Himalayas to Kanyakumari, right? Kerala. So we have representation from all the maximum parts of India. And we came together and we thought, okay, let's try to explore what philosophical counseling would be and is as of now, as it is being practiced elsewhere in outside India, so that we can develop our own perspective of philosophical counseling. With that intention, especially this is a requirement in the pandemic situation where we are now, COVID-19 pandemic situation. So we approached APA, and APA has agreed and offered a course to us online for the first time in their history. Right? So we were fortunate to have Lou and Wana, two wonderful scholars, coming together and talking to us and helping us in understanding how philosophical counseling is being practiced and taught in USA at present. And this led us to come together and try to talk to various philosophers who have been practicing philosophy at various places. And we were inviting scholars to come and talk to us and help us in understanding or to better our understanding of philosophical practice as it is going on at various places. And
could you just briefly tell me what the Indian audience particularly wishes to gain more of? Just give me maybe one sentence. What would really help your audience from the, they want to have the perspective of the Western philosophical approach added to psychotherapy. I mean, I would just like to know what they want to gain, if you could say that.
Yeah, basically, we would be happy if you can just talk about your own work.
Okay.
Right? That would be enriching for us, because we as a philosophical practitioner, you traveled a lot. So we would like to know your perspective of it and the hardest cases probably that you have dealt with, and what kind of advice probably would you give to the people who are trying to enter into the field. So, so with these things, may I request my colleagues one by one to introduce themselves? Can we start with Rick? Rick, briefly.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Rick Ripetti. I teach philosophy at Kingsborough Community College, which is one of the many colleges that are part of the City University of New York. My campus is in Brooklyn. I was certified in philosophical counseling like these folks were recently, but it was a few years ago for me. I almost finished all my training for Gestalt psychotherapy work some years ago. I had 1 year of training left when New York State changed the law about who could use the term psychotherapist. And just at that time, it was expensive training, and there was no guarantee that I would be grandfathered in under the new law. And at that same time, right in between my penultimate and ultimate year of training, I got hired full-time at my college, and I just decided to move in that direction and let go of that. But so I have that in my background. I've also been teaching yoga and meditation in various different settings for over 20 years. I've been practicing meditation since I was a kid. When I was a teenager, I stumbled into a yoga class by accident on television, and during the deep relaxation session, I had a kind of mystical experience, and that was it. I was sold on yoga and meditation ever since then. I had all sorts of really wonderful teachers in my life, meditation teachers like Ram Dass and whatnot. I've been, since I got my PhD, I wrote my dissertation on free will in a department at the City University of New York, which was completely analytic and very narrow in their focus. But after that, let me just say, even when I wrote my dissertation, my ideas about free will were informed by my meditation practice. Mm-hmm. But those ideas wound up being couched in, empirical terms, and anything more directly explicit about those ideas were in the footnotes. Mm-hmm. But once I got my dissertation and I was hired full-time as a teacher in a tenure-track job, I decided to be more explicit about my ideas, and I've been writing about Buddhism, meditation, and free will for the most part since then. And I've got a few books on the subject and dozens of articles and chapters, and I'm working on a handbook, the Routledge Handbook of the Philosophy of Meditation right now. And I have already about 30 contributors to that, and possibly a couple of folks from this group might be contributing to that as well. We'll see. We're in the early stages of the project. That's about it. I hope I didn't go too long.
No, that's not
you said two sentences.
Two sentences.
Sorry.
Okay, maybe we all can stick together. Yeah.
I'll be quiet now.
Metaphorical. 2 sentences is only metaphorical. It's not literal. Sudeep, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. So thank you. Hello, ma'am. Thank you very much for talking with us. My name is Sudeep, and I am doing my PhD in Department of Philosophy, University of Delhi. And my research area is early Buddhist metaphysics and trying to see the question of time consciousness in early Buddhism. And I'm also trying to develop a phenomenology of running. That's a very separate subject, but yes, I'm trying to develop that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Sudeep.
Phenomenology learning.
Saujanya, would you?
Yeah. Good evening, ma'am. My name is Saujanya, and I am from Hyderabad, that is south of India. I am a psychological counselor. I practice counseling. I am a freelancer, and I get my cases referred by psychiatrists. And I am into this as a philosophical counseling also. So I would like to integrate philosophical counseling into psychotherapy. I don't know. I feel like integrating it, and I think they both go hand in hand. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Saujanya. You know Charu, so I don't have to request Charu to introduce herself. So may I request Madhulika? Madhulika?
Hi, ma'am. Good evening. Madhulika this side. I did my post-graduation in philosophy last year, and I have been interested in philosophical counseling since then. And recently, after becoming the certified philosophical counselor, I've started a sort of practice, but not officially, just very casually right now. And it's going pretty well. So my endeavors are focused towards philosophical counseling. So hopefully, we are as good as you guys in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhulika. May I request Ashwini? Ashwini,
hi.
You,
sure.
Introducing yourself. Yeah.
Sure. Namaste. My name is Ashwini Mokashi, and I'm originally from Pune in India, and I have lived in several different places, but currently I'm in New Jersey for a couple decades. And I study philosophy, and I'm also familiar with various languages, including Sanskrit. So I like to study ancient philosophy through ancient languages. And I also have a keen interest in literature, because once you know the language, nothing stops you from reading more stuff. I have been a meditator for as long as I can remember, And I also belong to a school of meditation. And I'm writing a book on meditation right now, which I'm hoping would be finished like before the end of this year or earlier than that. And one of my books is published last year, which is called Sapiens and Sthita Prajna, and it's on the concept of a wise person. It's a complicated name, Sapiens and Sthita Prajna. So Sapiens is the Latin term for wise person, and Sthita Prajna is the Sanskrit term, and the concept is found in the Bhagavad Gita. As far as philosophical counseling, I've been doing a lot of mentoring over the years, and it's pretty much like philosophical counseling, and I used it partly, to my business colleagues, and I spent a year. I spent a decade in the business world because philosophy doesn't pay, right? And I needed a job, so I moved to the business world instead of doing some other thing. And finally, I'm back into philosophy by various sort of changes of courses in life. And I believe there's a reason for it. There's a reason that I need to do philosophy and, philosophical counseling. My counseling kind of, right. So I guess my counseling kind of got started as a push from my social work, where I see a lot of people in crisis, and even though it's hard to tell those people who are in crisis that there's a direct connection between the philosophical wisdom and what they're going through, it's very clear in my mind. So I started doing that. I write a blog, and I get a lot of viewers to my blog, but I'm still not sure if I'm reaching the right people, because when people are in crisis, they don't necessarily read blogs, or and they don't see the problems coming their way. They just assume that life is going to go on fine until they sort of suddenly get a dip. Right. So I'm trying whichever way I can to reach out to people and to talk to people. I end up doing a lot of pro bono work as a result, which is okay too. But I guess at some point I'll have to figure out whether I am going to do this as a professional work, or just continue as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwini.
Thank you.
May I request Mithali to introduce herself? Mithali?
Hello everyone. Hello ma'am. I'm Mithali Bhagavati. I'm basically from the northeastern part of India, and my
monsoon coming.
My state is called Assam. Presently, I'm teaching philosophy to the undergraduate students, and I'm also doing my PhD research on Advaita Vedanta and multiculturalism. And now I'm actively engaged with the philosophical counseling team. Though I have not started counseling, but I'm working on it and started writing something on it.
Great. Thank you, Mithali. Suchitra ji, Dr. Suchitra, are you there? Yeah.
Yes. Hello. Good evening, all. Good evening, madam. I have been teaching philosophy and psychology for past 30 years. Presently, I am principal of Joshi Bedekar College, situated at Thane, which is considered as twin city of Mumbai. Also, Associate Dean of Humanities. But my passion has been counseling, and my main work is with teenagers and also parental counseling. I have tried to introduce philosophy in counseling sessions, but now with this course, the effort would be more conscious. Earlier, it was happening at subconscious level, but after doing this course, I am realizing what all things from philosophy I have been using in counseling. Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Let me invite another young friend of ours, Banashri Bhatia. In fact, she is joining us for the first time, and other friends also don't know her. Banashri, are you there? Yeah, great.
Yes. Hi.
In fact, she has done a course with APA even before we have done it. she went to New York and she has done the course there 1 year back, right? A year ago.
Yes.
Banashri, would you please introduce yourself, Banashri?
Yes, thank you, sir. I completed my certification from APA in 2019, so last year. And since then, I've been very interested in pursuing philosophical counseling. And I still have a lot more to learn. So I'm very eager to attend all these seminars and workshops as much as I can. So I learn more and I can get into the practice of philosophical counseling. So,
thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Banashri. Yeah, that completes our circle. Now, I would request Charu to introduce Ilona Selke to all the friends.
Right.
Charu.
Yes. So thank you so much, everyone, for those introductions. And let me just tell a little bit about the star of the show here today. So Ilona Selke is an internationally best-selling author, seminar leader, lecturer, musician, and CEO of Living from Vision. Over 30 plus years, she has inspired thousands of people worldwide to discover the power of their consciousness and how to create a successful life. She has taught seminars around the world, both in English and German, such as in Bali, North America, Australia, India, England, France, Canada. The list basically goes on and on. And her first book, which is Wisdom of the Dolphins, is about the magic of dolphins and teaches how to access the holographic universe through the power of our dreamtime mind. And I'm so honored to tell everybody here that we are actually translating her book into Hindi as MP Publishing House. She has very graciously agreed to come on board with us as an author. And we really wanted the information to be spread out as far and wide in India in indigenous Indian languages. So that's a very exciting project that we are part of right now. And her course, Living from Vision, has been translated into German, French, Spanish, Chinese, Czechoslovakian. It's being taught worldwide. So she's basically been all around the globe. She has been practicing for 30 plus years. And some of the specific questions that I asked her in my mail, I'll just lay them out here so that if anybody else has different questions from these, you can probably ask her once she's done with her section. So I asked her that we would like to get a basic idea of what your theory is behind your practice. How is it related to holodynamics and Dr. Vernon Wolf? Since that is how we kind of, got in touch with her for the first place. How you have put it into use for the past 30 years, and how do you relate the kind of counseling you do to philosophical counseling? Any innovations in the field which you have come up with, making it uniquely your own? And I asked her that even if she just talks about her experience with holodynamics, meditation, and what living with vision is, which is her course, so that would help the group immensely. Also, if she would not mind sharing, I asked her, how she developed her business and how she scaled it, because she has a course, she has audiobooks, books, etc. And since we all are trying to start our practice, that is something that we would be excited to hear about. So over to you now, ma'am. And if anybody has any questions, we'll just keep pitching.
All right. Thank you so much for having me here tonight and in the morning for you guys on the East Coast. Those are, first of all, very amazing backgrounds you're coming from. I'm very honored to be in your presence. I took the journey, just like Rick described. I was born in the Himalayas. I had a mom who took me through India in utero, and she was stimulated by the Indian philosophy and yoga and meditation back in 1961. So I'm almost 60 and 1 year shy. So she taught me yoga when I was very little, 4 or 5 years old. She taught me the yogic breath. When I was 4 or 5 years old, I remember breathing in, and she said, now see that brilliant light in your inner mind. And I'm like going, Mom, it's dark in there. I don't see any light. So when I was 14, I had the very distinct feeling that I had a purpose in life, and that was to help people, adults, as a matter of fact, to reach into deeper levels of their own creative soul. Why? And many people ask, does everybody have a purpose? And I do believe that this entire planet is like a school. Now, I'm going to give you some of my philosophy or my belief about what reality is, and it will tie into how and why I went the way I went into holodynamics. We're in an earth school, and souls come here, as probably many of you in India already know, at varying degrees of evolutionary rates. In the West, that would be poo-pooed upon, but in the East, you probably have that wherewithal already. And so we are evolving, although you might just say the one big isness is evolving through all its parts. My mother had a book by Heisenberg. It was called The Part and the Whole, and that title alone stuck with me throughout my youth years, where I was trying to figure out, who am I, what is my purpose on life? So the purpose I kind of felt intuitively, but I started reading the biography of Kierkegaard and the autobiography of a yogi when I was in my early teens, Hermann Hesse, Siddhartha. Those books stimulated my mind to try and understand what we are about, what am I about, what is individuality, and what is the cosmos about. And this part and the whole concept stuck with me, and I never knew what it really meant. But later, I was going to study Sanskrit first as Amshrini. And I do agree with you, language. I'm German. I grew up in the German language, but I visualized when I was 6, 7, 8, and 9 years old that I would marry an English-speaking husband. I would study in Cambridge, and my husband was to have came to me in a flash. I have a beard and play music, which he does. So we speak English. I wound up living in America, not in England. But the whole concept that drove me is to try and understand, what is this whole universe about? And when we take it to our clients and we do counseling, our worldview and our understanding and capacity of the universe to operate within it as a mature soul affects and makes all the changes. As a matter of fact, I've taught a lot of seminars to therapists and could tell you that the therapist only gets the client that they're capable of handling. Unconsciously, the students pick their teacher or their psychotherapists or whatever they are, their guide, unconsciously and according to the capacity that you carry within you. That's the clientele you draw. The natural clientele for me was a lot of teachers, a lot of psychotherapists, a lot of doctors. And I think in the self-concept that when I went to philosophy, I studied comparative religions, what emerged was an understanding, a left brain version understanding of what reality was. It was a cognitive attempt at trying to describe something what I felt was behind a curtain that I wished to peek through. So, it's like, what is reality about? And it felt like it was a tangible world. And as a child, I had out-of-body experiences. I went flying into the cosmos, and I had dream recollection from past lives. So I knew that what we were taught in philosophy, even in regurgitating Buddhism and tenets of the Eastern philosophies, which are heavily based on soul awareness and meditative awareness, wasn't really getting me there. So I actually then I started meditation when I was 17, really invested into that. And actually, my meditation teacher at that time said, quit studying philosophy. You'll never get the answer there. So I actually quit those studies and went inward and discovered an Indian-based spiritual teaching that we live in a multidimensional universe. And in this multidimensional universe, it's not just about the absence of thought that counts, but the fact that we exist at increasingly finer and finer intensities of frequencies, and you could say at more and more embracing levels of time. As you raise your vibration, as you raise your pinnacle of frequency of that focal point of consciousness, which is the center of all of that we each are, when we raise that, in meditation, generally, a lot of people lower their brainwave frequencies, and the Earth has lower brainwave. The natural Earth brainwave is around the alpha brainwave frequency, around 7.83 hertz, currently going up into 11 and 13 hertz. But you may have read about the studies of Buddhist monks who are measured in the gamma brainwave frequencies, 44 hertz, 200 hertz even, and up. And our capacity of vibrating at an infinitesimal frequency allows us to occupy a larger time space, which then brought me to understand. So once I understood some of these things, I peeked through the veil from my own internal meditation practice. So I wanted to be useful, and I asked and then studied different body-centered psychotherapy techniques: Gestalt therapy, Haikomi therapy, breath work, Neo-Reikian work, body work, and that was in my mid-20s. And I just felt like, God, there is something nice, but I want to see miracles. I want to break through the illusionary Maya world and really create changes in people's lives. So this is something I bring to the table, this concept that the universe is in dialogue with each one of us. And that's where Heisenberg's concept of the whole and the part now took me to the next level. It's like the part of us that communicates with the larger whole somehow magically has a dialogue. One of my books is called Dream Big, the Universe is Listening. And when we understand that we're not living just simply in a psychological world or in a world of experience and potentially suffering and elimination of suffering, but that the larger fabric of creation is actually breathing its own life through our individuality, the part of itself, returning its gaze to the center. I asked that center, I said, give me the most powerful technique that I can get so I can really make changes in people's lives. And 6 months later, I found myself in a lecture held by Dr. Vern Wolf in California at the time. And I wrote about that experience in the beginning of my book, Wisdom of the Dolphins. I attended the lecture, and he is immediately connecting quantum physics and one of the interpretations of quantum physics, one of the 4 interpretations, lends itself, based on Everett Wheeler, a different philosophy approaches that say that the universe is conscious, that Everett Hughes, that we are, with our attention, co-creating the outcome. Now, that is typically used nowadays as the EPR experiment, Einstein saying this doesn't happen, but then in 1982 it was proven to be true. And now quantum computing is even more proving it true. What we look for is what we see. So which is really important as us as therapists or as counselors is that which we look for or are capable of anticipating will be that which can emerge in our field. To a large degree, I believe we actually are counseling ourselves in that outer appearing world. You might find that the steps you are participating in evolving in yourself are actually the clients that show up around you. So when they say, the teacher learns the most, I believe that reflection is a dialogue between the universe from ourselves that externalizes itself. I'm giving you my philosophical perspective as I'm speaking, but in the book I'm just now writing, in one of the introductory chapters, I describe how philosophy and psychology used to be separated and thought of as psychology being just a human-based mind study and philosophy is attending to the larger picture. Well, I believe you can't divorce the two. They influence each other. So when I listen to Vern Wolf, this ascension, this connection between the source of creation and the psychology that he was supporting, which in a nutshell you could call it body-centered psychotherapy, leaning on quantum physics and understanding that the thoughts create reality. So when he spoke about that in the client's mind's experience, no matter how negative it is, embedded within it is the hidden potential, and that all it took to transcend the current crisis into its potential was, to be willing to acknowledge what is, which is the body-centered psychotherapy part does really well. Gestalt therapy, Haikomi therapy, they access the current issue through a body felt sensation. So let's say one of the any issue you might have, you can always say to yourself, where am I feeling? What am I feeling where in my body when I think about this issue? Even being late on a train in Germany, I was anxious and angry at being late was a sensation I felt in my body. I described that story, and the magic of transcending time, and pay attention to this one, was at first a negative emotion that I felt within my body. So this negative emotion can be described even by a child. Right now I'm putting online the children's book that I've written, Alan Learns to Use His Imagination, which you can find on my online course. I'll have Charu later give you links if you wish to have them. That children's book takes this technique from Dr. Vern Wolf into the child's language, right? So you can take 3-year-olds into this transcendental transformation of an issue into its potential through the unification of polarities by simply asking, where do you feel it? What color does it have? What shape would it have if it had some? And in my case, driving in that train, I was experiencing red, angry in my energy in my tummy that looked like a fireball. So I took it outside of myself. Easy, simple technique to do that allows the client to step out, especially if they've been abused, sexually abused, or whatever. They usually can't, it's hard for them to have to relive the experience, but it gives them a moment of contact and then the ability to put it outside so they don't have to live and relive it and re-traumatize themselves. It's psychologically reigniting a groove not so useful. But when I saw that fireball, I took the technique Vern Wolf taught, which is understanding that within a negativity is hidden its potential, asking it what such a negative energy really wanted. And this, mind you, understood quantum physics in the way that says all existences exist simultaneously in parallel, and that is what I was looking for, a hyperdimensional perspective on reality that had tangible results in the physical, not just philosophical ideas, but actually changes that will be able to be made. So I took that anger, I asked it what it really wanted. It wanted to arrive on time, but the train was late. Every time I looked at a clock, in Germany they were always on time, but they have these clocks on the side of the railway station. It said half an hour late, 40 minutes late, 45 minutes late. And by the time I was supposed to arrive in Stuttgart in 1989, there were no cell phones. I was going to miss this classical musician who was going to pick me up in the break together with my husband. And we just celebrated our 37th just 2 days ago. So in that moment of having the duality, the polarities separated in my mind, the old energy of what didn't work, the new energy of what I really wanted, and the understanding that I am the observer. Because this experience is contained within this, the higher expression, we simply ask to merge the two into singularity. And in the moment of merging two opposites that contain each other, right? This actually is expressed in its highest form at the higher level at another frequency level, which assumes that reality doesn't only exist in one reality band, and not only mental or emotional bandwidths, but multiple timelines simultaneously. By merging the two, I opened myself up to what I focused on, which in quantum physics, they say determines the outcome. You, as the observer, create the outcome. I'm speaking quickly, more quickly than I would to normal students. I have an intelligent audience, that's why I'm hoping you guys don't mind me rattling off, because I know you will want to probably ask some questions too. So having had the new fulfilled image in my heart and mind, which is something that Vern Wolf talked about, having taken kids out of drug addiction, having taken schizophrenics out of schizophrenia with it. A lady, Dr. Bobby Barnes, wrote her PhD thesis on that particular technique and took dropout high school kids who were involved in gangs out of California and took them through this process for 2 months, all these various aspects of it, and got them back to scholastic standing so that they were able to enter school at the end of 2 months, right? Vern cleared out an entire valley of 250,000 inhabitants with that many teenage kids who were drug-driven, and the kids started saying to the drug dealer, what do you really want? They learned to access a higher source of isness. And when I say we are existing on two axes, I always draw a cross, really. One that goes from the subconscious to the superconscious. And the other one is that goes into the future and into the past. By clearing the past, you affect the future. By creating a new outcome in your past, so to speak, you create a new tangent of potential outcome in the future, a reality. I get out in Stuttgart, look at, we were told we were late. We came out at another K. We took our suitcase and our friend was not to be found. And we said, well, let's look for him around the corner. And no sooner had we said, let's look around the corner, does he come towards us and says, Dawn, Ilona, what are you doing here early? I look up at the clock, two clocks, one in front of us, one to the side in Stuttgart, and my jaw dropped because now, instead of being late, we were early. And this was, in Germany, we have time switching times in October. Well, we were here in September, and it wasn't our time switching time. So my left brain went to work. My right brain had done all the transformational work based on the teachings of quantum shifting, of understanding that we live in the quantum foam. And you, as much as anybody else, affects the global changes, which are some of the stories around. Free will and destiny are depending on the frequency that you occupy. If you vibrate at a particular reality, and we all go in and out of realities, right? And vibration, and we sometimes rise, we sometimes fall. Wherever you are, that actually determines your timeline. But if you manage to rise above the current frustration into a higher perspective and are able to take your current now state into the fulfilled future at a higher frequency range, you actually wind up in that higher frequency reality, which was the thesis that I wrote about in my book, Dolphins, Love, and Destiny. The whole concept about that consciousness has free will as long as you take your psychological elevator up to a new vibrational level. So when I found this work, this was 1988, 89. I was like, that's it. I am doing this. So I took I did my master's work with Dr. Vern Wolf, and then consequently met Dr. Rod Newton, who collaborated with Dr. Vern Wolf and did Living from Vision, which is focusing on the future and embedding the teachings of Dr. Vern Wolf, the psychological work, and also realizing that he's also coming from an Indian lineage of meditation, that we live in this world of Maya. We might as well be free to understand that your consciousness is the focal point through which the light fractals into reality. Your clients are the same. So if you can help them at the same time being aware of your own multidimensionality, you can be with them at a higher place, in a higher dimension, and simultaneously communicate with them at core levels of reality that are not only conceptual, but are vibrational, impactful, which is the work that I like to do. I like to take people according to their capacity, but meet them at various levels of their heightened states of awareness when they're able to, whether they know it or not. People come to their own answers through this technique. It sources people through their body felt issues, whatever they are. I mean, I have had, people go through whatever, it's drug addiction to sexual abuse, child abuse to, I personally haven't worked with psychotics. I have borderline friends, but I actually like to add biochemistry to it. I think a lot of issues come through digestion, so I've come to learn some aspects of that, but as far as like some of the, I remember one case, that woman came to my seminar, a doctor who had an anorexic girl, had just taken my weekend training, So she was a doctor, and applied this technique as soon as she got home on her anorexic one girl who had been put into a hospital where she was about to be force-fed. And she said, please give me just one more chance. I want to work with this little girl for one session or maybe two, if we see progress. And then if nothing works, we can give her to the force-feeding technique that the hospital uses. And she then simply took Dr. Vern Wolf's work that I was teaching in Germany and walked her through the sequence of questions that I've published in the children's book as well, which are the basis for my book, Wisdom of the Dolphins, as well. And she walked her through how this started, where she feels this, where she felt that empathy. Turns out she had forged a friendship with a girl from, I want to say, a Baltic region at the time, Romania maybe. It was something, one war-torn country, and that girl and the families thereof were famished. And because she had such compassion, she decided she wasn't going to eat any more than the girl was able to eat. So that was actually her trigger to become anorexic herself. But when she realized what she really wanted, instead of, in a mature way, instead of just being like the girl, expressing her love and compassion in a way that made them both of them blossom, then she got this feeling that, well, if we both were blossomed, we would be both like, avatars and superheroes and radiant and healthy and strong. When she got to what she really wanted, which is a true higher friendship and love, she was able to take that old way and immature way of having friendship and compassion and equality and express it in its higher form. And remember, we have the duality, we have the two somewhat polar opposite realities, and ask the lower one of them, the lower vibrating one, to be absorbed in the higher vibrating one into itself, and what was left over was the fulfillment. The next day, the girl didn't lose any weight. The next day, they did one more session, she gained 100 grams. Well, the hospital thought that was promising, so they gave her a couple more days, and each day she gained 100 grams without having to go through the traumatizing, force-feeding, alienating, will-imposed experience of feeling like she has one misunderstood psychology that she doesn't have access to, but now with the therapeutic access of quantum physics understanding of all possibilities being possible and evolving, psycho-maturing the negative into its highest potential in her own mind, bringing it up to speed into a new reality that now informed her subconscious and all her feeding choices, all her food choices. Her body started absorbing the food. So, it's always nice to hear stories like I arrived on time with a train. Explain that. I have plenty of time travel stories. Some of them, one was actually picked up by Jack Canfield in his book, The Big Secret. It's just one story in a book, but it's similarly on flights, where we were told we were flying into Baltimore. I was going to teach a dolphin swim seminar, and we had to land in Washington, D.C. in order to get our flight to Miami. Well, we had thunderstorms over D.C., as you have in the summer coming up right now, really soon, really a lot. And the doctor next to me said, no chance, girl, you're never going to make it on that flight. We're going to go to Baltimore. Sure enough, on the backs of that 777, we had those video cameras. The flight took us to Baltimore. We landed, but I said, no, I'm doing time travel. Genie was my favorite TV show when I was a kid. So I applied Dr. Vern Wolf's understanding of time and quantum reality. And of course, this is something that you are aware of in India. Yogis talk about it. Once we realize that what appears to us as solid reality is not, and that our consciousness reassembles reality, you are free to choose the reality of your choice in keeping with your capacity to funnel through the amount of light needed for you to wind up at a new reality. Similarly, your client. If you can help your client raise its own fractal frequency diamond into a new form of frequency, then you can have your client have a new reality. And it becomes a self-experienced shift that emotionally depends on themselves and only on themselves. They carry within them all the fractals of possible futures, possible pasts. This even applies to, we've guided people through, there was two guys in two different seminars told me the same story. They walked and cleared up the past with the same technique, body-centered psychomaturation with the understanding of quantum understanding of the universe, shifted their perspective of suffering as a child and never having been told they were loved, realizing that they chose their environment perfectly well, and that at a higher frequency dimension, their father actually did love them, and what they really wanted to experience was a higher form of love they didn't manage in reality. So now we psycho-mature the past into its highest expression and do the same technique, merge two into one. Where two into one exist, only one remains. The higher of the two will become the dominant reality, higher frequency one. These men in their mid-30s, mid-40s went home, and two different men told me. One said the father left a message on the answering machine for the first time in his life, said, "I love you." The other one had a similar experience where he telephoned with the father, and the father said, "I love you," for the first time. So creating changes in the past, which is why I draw across, the ascension between the subconscious and the philosophical union and the source of our soul, meditation, as well as changing the past and focusing on the future. It's our focus that creates reality. So that's why I tie them together. It's situated, the cross meets in our heart. And as a matter of fact, when I've done guided imageries for adults and children, they all come up with the same answer for the purpose of life. We're here to shine more light and more love. And when we can help clients access the felt sensations in their own psyche, we guide them with our philosophical understanding that we live in a multidimensional universe, that we are dominantly consciousness and that expression is secondary. That's what we do in the background. You as a therapist or as a philosophical counselor hold the awareness depending on your background, but this is what I suggest. You work on the capacity of heightening your awareness into as high as you can of 0-point awareness and guide your client, which is why I love this work, to just feel their reality and guide them through step by step. Simple questions. What do you really want? What would it feel like if you got there? And then we integrate it into the psychology of the subconscious mind, have the mature versions, create a team on the inner levels of consciousness. Dr. Vern Wolf created the 6 levels of growth: the physical manifestation, the personal evolutionary growth, the relationship capacity, the social ability to be embedded in a team and social settings, the moral and ethic and principle development, which ultimately ends in understanding that I am that, taking full responsibility for the creation outside of ourselves. And lastly, the connection to the source and realizing that we are embedded as human beings in that celestial weave of a divine force. So we are co-creating, same as the work with Living from Vision, with our focus and are on the journey as the one through the eyes of the many back to the one. So you as the counselor carry the perspective of your own multidimensional universe, and it reflects itself into where your client goes. The same questions asked by different people will get different, similar results. The client will always access their higher levels of wisdom. But your capacity determines how intensely high you can take them to the source. Depends on the client too. My most recent, before last session, was I didn't have to say anything, but I guided her into a merger with herself and her highest imaginary guide, which is the ideal love version, right? And what happens is people start spiraling. I don't have to say a word. They spiral the two brilliant light beams in an incredible speed into a burst of singularity and light, into oneness. What happens is when you know reality from within, from the different levels of consciousness that you have managed to get to yourself, that is going to give the ceiling to your client and takes them unspokenly to those levels of reality. So we owe it to the universe to evolve our consciousness, and our clients are our reflections as well. Usually we can listen really well to what are we managing to counsel right now. It's usually something we need ourselves to integrate as well. But all right, so we have quantum physics, we have the understanding of parallel dimensions, and the fact that our philosophical approach influences where we go to. But what I love about Dr. Vern Wolf is that he unifies quantum physics understanding. He writes about the mitochondria, the cells, the antenna. I can give you scalar informations and talks. I've worked for 30 years on scalar technology and long distance healing with simply sending informational fields by canceling out informational fields. You take a waveform in its positive and negative, and by canceling them out, you create double the amount of scalar fields, as Maxwell discovered at the end of the 19th century. But that was taken out of mathematics, and we, as a modern society, don't understand about gravitational fields, and consciousness creates gravitational fields. This is the nutshell of everything. That's why your client, when you guide them through the aha and into this is what I really want, and they hold it in their entire being and let it go through the time space of their genetic memory, they actually are the resonating gravitational field creator that creates out of the ethers the assembly of the new reality, which is why we can have miracles. Any yogi that has managed to create an intense focus creates the immensity of gravitational fields into singularity, and your client can do that too. So I gave you a large overview quickly, I hope with some examples as to Vern Wolf's work. Holodynamics, I rapidly spoke this through. We only had an hour and a half, and we spent half an hour introducing ourselves, so I think hopefully I gave you some things to ask questions about. Obviously, I didn't talk about living from vision, which is geared towards creating your focus towards a future of your choice, which then obviously has to do with creating the clientele, the work, the outreach, the impact. And I owe my entire life to those two techniques, Dr. Vern Wolf's work, actually the three, my meditation practice, Dr. Vern Wolf's work, and living from vision, the futuristic co-creative power. Understanding that we as consciousness are co-creators with the divine universe that flows through us and fills the matrix of what we hold in our consciousness is the secret that I've discovered and teach tens and thousands of people across the world have taught. And people in Africa and in China are alike. They create the same and they go through the same psychological processes. We've done these techniques with kids in northern India in a Waisenhaus is a school for orphans, and there I have an app in Hindi in case you're interested, as well as in English for those that work with children. It has in English has to have 4 guided meditations in it to guide the children through it. I have it for adults. It's always an interactive experience and never cognitive as such, because the cognitive work was mine in the background, how the universe ticks. But applying it is through the felt sense of what reality feels like, because the body doesn't lie, and creates the changes in the subconscious of your client, and then they live the beauty of their next evolutionary step. Namaste. All right, good. Sharu, up to you, over to you.
Thank you.
I think this has
Thank
been
you.
so wonderful. Thank you so much, ma'am. I think we'll all have to watch and rewatch this recording to kind of absorb everything that you've told us today. I think she's a true spiritual scientist. What do you say, team? So
Scientist, yeah. I oftentimes, I'm in past lives, I've been a geneticist, which, yes, makes me more scientific, but this lifetime I really would call myself a mystic, but I love the psychological, philosophical interface. And yeah, thank you for your kindness.
Thank you so much for your talk. If anybody has any questions, Dr. Bala, Dr. Rick, if you have any comments to make, I think that will be enlightening for us.
Yeah, Rick, would you like to go? You have to unmute. Rick, you have to unmute.
Unmute yourself.
Sorry, this keeps happening. I have sounds in the background in my house. I want to keep them out of this session. No, I'm really just still absorbing everything. You said so much that was so interesting to me. I have nothing to ask right now.
And I felt, I feel like all of our backgrounds that you've brought here to the table are so compatible. I did speak quickly and I gave you a rapid overview, but I think bits and pieces, like, for example, the one thing I would stress is that we live in a multidimensional universe, and Dalai Lama said it's soul-centric. And we really are, as much as it may look like we have a global reality, and yes, we do, but what we individually experience has to do with a matrix of whatever we believe and project. And there are people who thrive, there are people who won't, there are people who suffer. And in the process of what Vern Wolf developed was a mind model that he describes in his book Holodynamics, which I would love for you to all get. It's from his website, holodynamics.com. He is a 4-time PhD in psychology and philosophy and multiple, I can't remember all 4 of them. I used to tell him it was 6, but he actually corrected me. It was only 4 PhDs. But the understanding is that we are living in a world where, and I think that has to do with soul evolution. Most people learn from pain and suffering and hitting their nose against the wall. I think, Amshreen, you were talking about that. When people hit the crisis, that's when they start going, oh, there is a problem. The more evolved souls, they see the freight train coming from a long distance away. But we are here by necessity of all levels, and there isn't one better soul than another. It's just some react to pain, and then as of a certain point, and this is what this technique gives, is there comes a choice. And we can't make our client make that choice. It's like, hey, you can keep suffering if you want to. I'm already happy. That's why I say when people go like, well, I don't know if I want to let go of my pain. It's like, well, that's all right. You can suffer some more. It's okay. I used to be there too. When my husband was like saying, I think we should transform this, don't you think? And I'm like going, no, I like being sad right now, and it's like, I want to wallow in my misery for a little longer. And eventually I realized Vern's choice point was the point we have to make, and everybody has to make. But eventually we can choose voluntarily to evolve voluntarily. And I think most all of us here are the types who set the challenges voluntarily instead of having challenges hit us against the nose to remind us, of course things hit us, but what I do is I immediately go into, where do I feel this? What is it? What does it look like, feel like? What does it really want? And then what would that look like? And then merge the two and go into solution-oriented creation. All right. So Val, maybe you wanted a question. Sorry. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, but I see Ashwini raising her hand. Ashwini, would you like to say something? Ashwini, please.
Yeah, yes, I would. I thoroughly enjoyed this talk. And there's just so many things that I need to, pick up from the talk. And I'm not sure that, that can happen very quickly. But I have a very specific question. You mentioned the technique about how to get rid of some pain in the past, and that can open something good in future. So I was just wondering if you can elaborate on that a little bit, like, how do you help somebody?
Okay, it's the same technique that I mentioned in rough, and the easiest would be for you to read any of my books or even get the children's books. It has the specific steps in it. Basically, you have a client go access that memory in the past, and it could actually be an ancestral memory. Time, from an observational point of view, is just experiences, and you access that experience, and then this could be in one's childhood, it could be in past lives, and have briefly people sense it, feel it, and go into it, and then anchor that whatever negative experience probably it was through a body felt experience. And let's say a person feels like overwhelmed or suffocated or whatever, angry, and they feel those sensations somewhere in their energy body, usually in one of the chakras, but they locate it. Then you guide them through a way of, like, is it more in the back, the front, the side, is it big, large, thin, what texture does it have, what color could it have, and get them to sense it, and then take it outside of themselves to get a ability to space it, as Vernon called it, to give it a perspective other than an internal experience. And then asking it, what was it about, what did it try to do, usually something within the condition, oftentimes immature or negative, and then finding out what does it really want. And in the past, it wanted to have love, be loved, have strength, be respected, be accepted, whatever the person may have gone through. If it was child molestation, for example, there was the willingness, and sometimes you have to pull both a soul, so to speak, into another level of reality where they exist in their higher potential, and then meet them there. And then they see that really what they wanted to do as souls was something beautiful. They messed up down here. But to give that face perspective, and then seeing the future fulfilled, what that is, and then realizing that the pain from the past actually is expressed in the fulfillment of that future imaginary reality, does a miracle within the subconscious of the person. They basically eradicate the memory of the past, and they give it a positive experience. They overlap two memories. You can basically eliminate. NLP has taught us that, right? You overlap two different stimuluses, and the brain goes blitz. And then there are some integrative processes. Really, in my children's book, I have the steps. It's all the fairy tale teaches it, the little kids. And we've taught these from 3-year-old, 6-year-old kids into teenage years, just as a technique for children, with the same miraculous results. The kids then think they can do magic. And by taking that imaginary past and healing it and asking it to ripple forward like a domino effect, suddenly they will walk with this new holographic vibratory pattern in their own body, and create a new field effect around themselves. This is going beyond the understanding that we are just psychological beings. We are actually creators of holograms. We live in a holographic matrix all of the time. Just imagine if we had, Star Trek, the holodeck. Do you remember that? Does that ring a bell? Yep. It's what we put in our consciousness that we see outside.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, I have a question.
Yeah, please, Saujanya, please go ahead.
Yeah. Ma'am, according to what you have explained, there are 2 points in my question. I felt it is something related to NLP, timeline of NLP, And second, how is it different from law of attraction?
Okay, so Tad James timeline therapy, you mean?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I apologize. I magically got over a serious cold, and I was suddenly, yesterday, I'm like going, how am I going to do this interview tomorrow? But it magically disappeared yesterday. And I mean, I was in bed till yesterday, and then I'm like going, oh my God, thank you, God. So, but I apologize. It's still a little bit on the dry side when I talk a lot. So how is it different from Tad James's timeline?
Yes.
Well, why I didn't study NLP, and I do like his timeline therapy, and I do like, you absorb the wisdom,
yes.
you dive in the moment before the event, but now with the wisdom that you had from the experience, and then you change the future events accordingly. I mean, it naturally happens. It really is miraculous. Why I didn't choose, in general, NLP is because in NLP, the practitioner oftentimes was the deciding factor as to what changes and shifts and unions of polarities or different opposing possibilities were to be taken. Whereas in Wern's work, I call it the organic transformational process. He sources the wisdom from within the person himself. In other words, the person goes to their own deepest level, and by asking what does it really want, I as a therapist have no manipulative power whatsoever. The answers come from within the person. And there is no need for me to say, well, I think your grandfather should have, and you need to, and this or that, or I think we better do this. Now, Tad James is a bit more organic in that sense, but if you think, bubbling up and letting the wisdom come into you that you got after the event, but it's different in fundament if you go before the event and go into the higher dimension and have a conversation between the souls that created a mishap. At that level, a higher dimensional understanding between souls is actually taking place. Not just my learning, but a learning between souls that exist outside of time and space, which is the philosophical approach that I bring, the multidimensional, soul-based awareness reality that I bring into psychotherapy in this case matters, but I don't have to say it. People get it. Even if they don't have a belief in past lives, I just say, well, just imagine, let it happen. And these realities communicate. I've taught seminars where I have these imaginary conversations going on, and physical realities start happening with that person that they changed in their own mind, that now when they go home acts like a different person. Yeah? So it's not just a self-healing thing, it's a multidimensional understanding of reality. And I am not sure, I would imagine Tad James in the deepest depth of his being has that belief. But did I answer your question sufficiently? Did I give you a good enough answer? I mean, I could go on. Okay.
Yeah, and I wanted to know how is it different from law of attraction?
Okay, the law of attraction is basically saying focus on what you want and you'll get it. But it's like you repeat to yourself. And this is how we evolved from the 70s, which was positive thinking, to living from vision, which is pre-experiencing success in advance as a felt sensation. It's a holistic, not just a mental exercise. I'm rich, I'm rich, I'm rich. I have to listen to the parts of me that actually may not agree, that may actually have opposing values from past lives. Let's say the nun in me says, being rich is really not a good idea, or bad, unspiritual. I mean, I would have to address the nun's beliefs before I get to my I am rich concept. Whereas this whole concept, Vern used to, and I used to do this too, we did a role play in the seminars. I would get a person and say, what are your goals? Where do you want to go? I want to be a millionaire. Okay. So now imagine you get there. it's like you get there and what comes up? Oh, is my family going to like me? Am I going to be so different from everybody? Oh my God, all my friends are going to ask me for money now. What am I going to do? Am I going to have to say no? All these buts and whats and ifs. Well, the secret law of attraction says just focus on it, say you're rich, write it on a mirror, you get there. Holodynamics says listen to the multiple voices and identities within your psychology. Give them a voice. Like maybe voice dialogue would, but then ask what they feel like in their fear and what they really want. To belong, to be loved, to be seen, to be accepted, to have boundaries in a healthy way, whatever those things are. And mature each of these resisting aspects up into its next higher dimension of expression that then allows the whole psychology to evolve into I am capable of being that millionaire rather than just thinking it, which is, I think, the biggest difference. So, in a nutshell.
Yeah. Means you mean to say experientially becoming a millionaire than just by cognitive power.
And all aspects, even the ones that say no, to address them and to feel them and to let them evolve into their highest gift or guardianship, whatever they want it to be. All no's in us have a higher aspect of a yes. And when we give them a voice and express them, we become a rich kaleidoscope at the higher expression in a rich and mature way, not just having the million, but handling the million.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Usually, in general, how many sessions, like approx, how many sessions does it take to achieve whatever we are looking for, whatever the issue is?
Okay, so there was one lady, I was in my apprentice time years. She came to my rather humble home, and I was in my mid-20s, and she's like, well, and actually her husband was having a session with my husband, and she was just sitting on the swing, and I said, I'm just learning this. I'll do with you something that I think is really awesome. And she told me her plight, her life wasn't working. She wasn't making any money. She wanted to live, somewhere under palm trees by the beach and be with a fabulous beloved in a fabulous rich setting, right? Well, that's great. So we did work with what part of her felt bad and just the blockages. And by the time my session was over, I didn't keep her number, nothing. And I don't know, a couple years later, we went to Kauai, and we were looking to swim with dolphins. And we went to the north shore of Kauai, and we had booked a massage session. What was it? Or bed and breakfast. So we show up, and the lady said, Ilona. And I'm like, yeah. She's like, don't you remember me? I was the one who visited you. We were on that swing on the veranda of yours, and remember my life? It completely changed 180 degrees, and I'm living right here in this millionaire's house. I am having my own villa. I have my best beloved. I'm living under the palm trees just like I wanted to. Another lady, she was a psychotherapist in Germany. She'd read my book, said, I'm going to do your course. She did Living from Vision. 5-week course to set your goals and transform your negative beliefs. She did the exercises, visualized herself. She said, I want to live like Ilona. We had multiple homes. One of them was on Hawaii by a dolphin beach. And I want to live by a dolphin beach under the palm trees like her. Well, she followed the 5-week course, and then she kept going. A year later, she's like, Ilona, dear Ilona, I have to talk with you. I have to have a private session with you because it's not working for me. I need you to visit with me in my home, and which I did. I happened to be there teaching a seminar, so we did a private session in her home in Germany when I was coming from America. I saw her life situation. She was married to a TV star who was not yet done with his career. She had a 4-year-old son who loved the other 17-year-old son. And she said, well, they're inseparable. And, but I want to live under the palms on a beach on another island. And I'm like going, dear woman, you're a married woman. I'm thinking, you have a husband, you have 2 children. They want each other. They're not going to let go. The husband doesn't want to leave Germany. You're the only one who wants your wish out of your family. What part of her do you think wanted to have a family, not let go of her children, not let go of her husband? All parts of her. But I looked inwardly, and this is part of, I believe, the beauty of this kind of work. To a degree, people have said it makes you clairvoyant because you start working in inner dimensions and you start seeing your client's holographic imagery. Well, I said, in 2 years' time, you'll have your wish. By that time, your 4-year-old will be going to school. It's at 6, going to Germans go to school at that age. He'll go to school. The 17-year-old will be 19, will be finishing school. In Germany, they go until 19, the ones who go to universities. And he would have to do a 2-year social service instead of military. So he will have to move away. And the husband was in that time period going to be probably old so that he wasn't going to be the star anymore. Guess what? 2 years, she kept her vision, pursued it, answered, did this. She said, Ilona, it happened. This is the reason why I'm here in Bali. We have a retreat center here in Bali where I'm calling you from. Shambhala, it's called. She said, I am now living in Bali on a beach where the dolphins swim by. I walk at night under the palms just like I saw it in my mind. So I didn't give those sessions. I gave her one session just to let her know that it'll be time, because she needed to allow all parts of her life, her children, her husband, herself, to come into alignment with that time frame where naturally everybody wanted to cooperate, not just her own wish. Yeah. So she took 2 years to manifest her dream. Other people have set the most outrageous numbers of, I've had multiple super successful authors have come out. People who were unemployed now speak to thousands and thousands of people on the big stage. They did the course Living from Vision and have created the miracles from the inside out. How long it takes depends on the person, the circumstances, and their willingness to let a drastic change happen now.
One more question, if you don't mind.
It's up to your coordinators.
Because in Indian philosophy, the sages, we say they have that divya drushti. Can we call that what you see when you meet a client?
Well, as I said to begin with, we are on an earth school, and all of us are at different stages. There is only one of us. There is only the source code, whatever you want to call it. But the differences in it, all of itself, it's like a carpet, is made out of different colors, different shreds, different fabric, different colors. We don't want only a red carpet or only black or only white. We are made of different fabrics. So one of us has maybe already spent 10 lifetimes in a cave and really developed whatever, our higher visions, or vibrating there. Others, we've worked and we're just developing the ability to have a soul diamond and are doing great work because we still have the compassion, because we remember the suffering. It depends on where we are. And we are who we are, and whether we have great visions, those are things that we as soul are, and we always work at our next evolutionary step, whatever that is. It's always our next step. Compared to somebody else, it may look like a small step. Maybe a sage can see, all times and all spaces and whatever, and move a mountain with a thought or not, whatever. And the other person is just barely to move their pencil, but they can write a beautiful poem, and they're touching people at their heart. So is that a less worthy poem writer than the one who can move mountains? So I do believe that this work, yes, it opens up your inner ability to see, because that's what clients have told me themselves, therapists who've started doing this work. They say, oh, by the way, it's a way of becoming clairvoyant. People who've never been able to see anything in a certain amount of people are kinesthetics. They come to seminars, at least a third, I test them, and they don't see much of anything. And I guide them through a little technique, of seeing something, and they all know. We all know, but some see, some feel, some hear. And, whether or not we are super great seers or less or whatever, our gift is our gift that we bring. And we are only asked to grow to our next evolutionary step.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. I have just a couple of observations that I would like to make, though I don't have any questions at all. Initially, when you're explaining about your own life experiences, you said your teacher asked you not to read this philosophy, stop it there, right? And then you said you stopped it and started going into yourself, and inward journey is the one which has revealed certain things to you. This is exactly what Indian tradition, Advaita Vedantic tradition especially, tells us, that the way of learning is Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya is self-learning, and which is a combination of Sravana, you listen to what is coming to you, and then Manana, which means you think about it repetitively, and then Nididhyasana, which is meditating on it so that you can realize what is being given to you, what you have got it. So this is exactly what you have done, and
then the answer comes, that, like you said, then that which comes is the answer for you.
Right. That's so wonderful. Seeing somebody practicing it and getting the fruit of it. The other thing that I was, in fact, just before, even before we have started this session, I was looking at your website and trying to understand what are the things that you do differently from other philosophy practitioners. And I have noted...
Which of my websites did you look at? Which one is that?
Okay.
IlonaSelke.com, maybe?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
okay. It's my author page. Okay.
IlonaSelke.com. Yeah, right. Same one. I was looking at it, and there are two things that I have noted. I thought I should ask you and I should talk to you during our conversation. But actually, both of them are well discussed by you so far. First one is co-creating the reality. That really struck me strongly when I read this co-creating reality. I stopped there. I couldn't go further. Because most of the times we think that we are away from the reality and we are not a part of the reality. But this co-creating the reality is, even that itself is multidimensional. No,
exactly.
When you are interacting with the physical world, you are co-creating the physical world. You are co-creating the psychological world. You are co-creating the, I don't know. That's where I stopped. No, I looked at certain things like physical world, of course, we are doing it. And then psychological world, we are doing it. Social world, we are doing it. But when it comes to spiritual world, I stopped there. No, I was thinking whether, do we really co-create the spiritual universe?
Well, let me explain the word co-create a little bit differently, possibly, and then it makes maybe more sense. There are 4 levels of interacting with life. Let's just start out with the most basic, which is reacting to what comes at us, right? It's either danger or food or good things. We react. It's it comes to us, we're the subject, we're pushing or experiencing, or we also have choice. We choose, we decide, we want, we will. We have that part of us that makes that choice. And the part of co-creating is actually the part that understands that the self is in between what I would call the heavens and the earth, is co-creating with yet a higher force. If we, the flatlander point of view of saying, if you were describing as a flatlander who only sees what happens on the surface of a piece of paper when a hand lands. Now imagine all you see is actually the interception of my finger touching the 2-dimensional surface. You would see 5 dots coming in and consecutively getting larger and larger, right? but you would fail, and you'd have to fail to notice it's part of a hand because all you see is the 5 dots. Yet with co-creating, we realize that we're not just the dot, we're connected to the larger field, that larger isness, that field in which we create, but that also is a supreme intelligence that binds everything together. So it's a co-creative process of creating. It's not just us making a choice or reacting to something that is surrounding us. It is working, and that takes it from the personal will to the divine will into the alignment, where that's where vision and the seer capacity comes into as well. You take it to a higher dimension. Now, where it goes outside of just pure destiny, and what Rick is, I think, also writing about free will, is the ability, and that I think is the fundamental nature of reality. It's self-explorational. It is co-creational. It uses the particular of individualized consciousness, which is us as the soul, or itself as the I of me, looking back at itself and becoming self-cognizant and having that loop. But it is the entirety, so communicating from the part to the whole becomes a co-creative process. In that sense, that's how I use co-creative. It's slightly different and may give a different flavor to that. And spiritual co-creativeness is evolving the fractal eye of the divine, seeing itself and unifying with itself, but through its unique configuration, which is the you or the me.
So, can I understand it that you are trying to go, or you are trying to ask us to transcend the teleology?
To transcend the
teleology, which means the intelligent consciousness has already designed something, and it has some telos, or how do you look at it? No, because
my fundamental experience is that in my deepest of meditations, I become one with that is, and then truly it is all. It's like looking at itself from all the sides, but it's a forever evolving new fractal, so to speak. It discovers itself through the creative process of its own self. So it's like self-observing universe, but it's like the conscious part, the individualized version of consciousness that can perceive, and is the hands and eyes of the one that's discovering itself, is the creative process, is at once that which creates newness in an unpredictable pattern within the capacity of the whole. And as such, I don't believe, and I'm not a Buddhist, and I feel I have been a Buddhist. I have recollections of having been a Lama in past lives. I feel in Buddhism, to a degree, and depending on how it's understood, I found that Buddhists oftentimes were deeply depressed, and what they avoided is the selfhood. In the true understanding that there is only one, right? Yes, there is only one, but it doesn't negate the individuality. It's like, this is what God is currently doing, so you might as well let that God really do its part well and illuminate itself from the inside out. And avoiding the concept of reincarnation, which Buddhism does sidestep. It just says it reincarnates qualities instead of the individual. And then they contradict themselves anyways, because they find the reincarnations of the Lamas and the Dalai Lamas and the Rinpoches. And indeed, these individual diamonds of consciousness are formed and they grow over time, but yet they are absorbed back into its whole. It's a never-ending story, and in that sense, there isn't ever the truth. Yes, the seers were right. There is illusion, and yet it is what God is doing. It is what whatever you may call the divine source, the telos, is doing. It's expressing itself in form and color, or of all dimensions, gross to divine.
Yeah, if I understand it correctly, it's like even the individuated consciousness, which means each one of us, have the potentiality to co-create, right? And some of us may not really participate in that, or some of us may not really realize that. And probably the philosophical counselor's job is to ignite that so that people would start actively participating in co-creating. Right?
In awakening the soul. Yeah, beautifully said. Yes.
Wonderful, very good.
Yes, and that requires of us to become illuminated to begin with. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing that I have noted from your website when I looked at is how to live and manifest dreams. No, that was really fascinating to me, right?
Yeah.
But you have already noted two case studies from your experience where the dreams of two women were realized. No, how do you manifest your dreams? Yeah.
Yeah, which is why working in the department of subconscious work and liberating our negative belief systems is equally important as knowing where we want to go and having a future vision. Like there was one participant I wrote in my book, Dream Big, the universe is listening. It was a lady in a seminar that really looked like a mouse. I mean, she was like, and I asked for a volunteer and I looked at her and she's, can you be my volunteer? And she's like, okay. She stood in front of the whole class and she had to find parts, and she was easy to find the parts that didn't work because she was already a mouse. Well, she was unhappily married and didn't make any money and was just a housewife at home. But in that and in her mousiness, her contracted self actually really wanted her to be empowered and a radiant creator. So fulfilled and having a great life. So we went through changing all the aspects that led her to believe that, she needed to be like this, her childhood beliefs. And so it went through a while. It's a lengthier process. I mean, it didn't take an hour, but I did maybe a 45-minute process in front of the group. 3 aspects that belong to this dream of hers that she could become a radiant person. She sits down. The next morning, people say, Ilona, we have a different person in the group. I don't know. I'm looking at her. I'm going, excuse me, we really require that people were here yesterday before you're here today. Like, you can't just walk in. I'm sorry. She said, well, don't you recognize me? I was that lady you had in front of the group yesterday. Oh, okay. So, all right. She comes and goes and does the whole seminar. Next year, I have another group. A radiant woman comes in and we introduce ourselves and she's like, well, last year, I was this mouse, this year I did exactly one of my dreams, which was what she decided to do is buy old houses, and that she'd bought one and refurbished it, decorated it, because that's what she loved to do, and resold it. Divorced from her husband, built her own business, and was a radiant woman from this one weekend. Now, that's what I'm saying. It's equally important to work with the parts in us that don't work, that are small. It's not just about going, I can manifest my dreams. I need to attend to the part in me that is holding myself exactly where I am right now to get to where I really want to go. Once that is illuminated and gets to express itself at its higher potential, and I merge the two, it evaporates. You don't have to eliminate negativity. It absorbs it into its highest expression. And that's what I love about it. You don't have to repress. You allow it to unfold. And then that flower becomes the radiant new song in your radio station, and you go out into the world and you play that song really well.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, in fact, we have already crossed the time limit that we have kept for ourselves, 7:30. Now it is 7:40 here, which means I hope it's okay for you, right? It's fine with you.
It's okay. Yes, it's okay.
If there are any other questions or observations that any of you would like to make?
There's one question in the group. It's, can domestic violence be addressed with holographic technique like in Gestalt therapy, this is supposed to say, right? Yes, of course. It's we create the realities around us that are fitting with our own personal internal experience. Now, if we change our internal experience, we will change the external experience. That may take different forms, depending on how long and how deep-seated some of these things are, whether and for whatever reasons the person is there. It's multifaceted. We've created the world we're in for a reason as well. Over to you.
May I?
Yeah, please.
I'm just trying to understand that statement. I have worked with some people who have been in domestic violence situation, and because of the lockdown, that's sort of just completely getting out of control as I see it. And it'll be very difficult to say to people that you kind of created the situation. I mean, even if that were true, you
don't have to tell them that. You don't have to tell them that, but they picked whoever they picked as a partner. And it is challenging, and we will be presented with more pressure, and we have to see what are we made of and how do we handle confinement, how do we handle pressure. And it is this lifetime, it's not by coincidence that we have this experience. Some people have a blissful life right now. Some people have a nightmare. It is who they are that reflects itself in how they're experiencing their current state. Every ounce of us reflects itself. So by us as a therapist realizing that they are in a perfect place, and yes, now they can grow. How can they grow? Even if they realize that's not the guy or woman or child I want to be with, whatever. India is more difficult because it's still more traditional. But they may come to realize that that inherent violent nature was always there. They can help the person and say, what do you really want? Let's get there. Time out. Let's focus on what do we really want. They can go in their minds. People do this for business meetings. Like my husband said this to me when I was like, he said, imagine I was an angel and I'm sure I'm going to do everything right. I used that technique. Pre-experiencing my fulfillment changed the people around me as well. Now, being in confinement puts stresses on people, and India is having a particularly hard experience, and the summertime is coming. It's hot. It's a lot of more challenging things than a lot of other people. But we are in the moment of time to bring forth the challenge that we need to grow. Your client, you, us all. So we can always take the next step.
Thank you.
Yeah, any more observations or questions? Okay. Charu, over to you.
Yeah, I would just like to thank you from the bottom of our hearts, Ilona Selke. I think every one of us had a very meaningful session here, and we're taking back a lot. Like I said, we'll watch the video again and reabsorb something, and then we'll probably bother you via email, and we'll keep in touch. But this was a wonderful session. Thank you so much for taking out the time. And thank you to everybody who's still here.
Yeah, and what you can do is download one of my books. Is also available for free as a PDF. That's how I collect addresses. It was 13 years a best-selling book in Germany, Wisdom of the Dolphins. It has these techniques embedded in there in a story format. You can get that from my website. One of them is livingfromvision.com. Livingfromvision.com. That's why I asked you, Bala, which website you looked at. You can also, there's another one, ilonaselke.online. And when you click on Living from Vision, the English, I have German and English ones, there it'll say you can download the Wisdom of the Dolphin book. But yeah. And then you can get the questions and all the, how it ties together, a little bit of an overview, but embedded in dolphin stories and time shift, global stories of how we co-create reality at a larger level in our own minds. It's not just in our personal lives.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Ilona, for this wonderful interaction. And let us have a group photo. If all of you come out of your closed
Hiding.
cameras, yeah, we can have a group pic. This is the group picture that is possible, right? This
Do we wave?
pandemic times, yeah.
Do you wave? Does everybody wave or not?
Yeah, we would do that definitely. Mithali, Mithali, are you there, Mithali?
She's recording.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. Madhulika, are you doing it?
Yes, sir. Just look into the camera, everyone. I'll take a screenshot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
What I've seen what really looks good in screenshots when everybody's waving and looking happy. So it's not like, something. So if you can try a second screenshot with all of us doing something fun. You want to do that?
Right. Why
Billy?
not?
Ready?
Why not? We should. Yeah.
Okay, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Show your hands. Be happy. Put your hands up. Hey.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Ilona. And please do allow us to interact with you through email. And I sincerely hope that you should come to Delhi sometime.
I do, yes.
So that we should have a session here with all the friends. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the honor. Rick, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
All of you are so advanced in your abilities. I was so touched to be in your company. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Namaste. Bye.
Thank you, Charu, for arranging this.
Yes.
Connecting all of us,
Anytime. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye.